Calgary real estate market forecast 2026. To be quite honest, we can't look at Calgary as if it's just going to be one market this year. Can't do that anymore. Based on the data, we're probably gonna have to look at Calgary as if it's gonna be 4 different markets, which all perform differently this year. If you end up enjoying the video, hit the like button, subscribe for more content similar to this, and there's gonna be timestamps in the description below so you can jump to different parts which you feel are more relevant for you. Okay, so here we are, the CREB forecast 2026. It's 30 pages long. However, I'm not gonna go through every single sentence, every single thing in detail. I'm going to be giving you information that I believe is the most important and relevant for you, either as a buyer thinking of buying at some point this year, or as a homeowner either thinking of selling, or just wanting to know what's going to happen with your property values this year. So right up here, highlighted in bold, it says balance to buyers market conditions are expected to persist in 2026 depending on property type. This is very, very key and critical. Remember, I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the video, you have to almost look at Calgary this year, and even last year we saw this, 4 different markets. I mean, you can say sub-markets if you want. Detached, semi-detached, aka duplex, townhouse, and apartments. These 4 categories are going to be performing differently like they have been the last couple of months. So it says here, the additional supply in the apartment and row segments of the market are expected to weigh on resale prices in those segments. Row simply means townhouse, just to clarify. And when it says additional supply, that's an understatement. Apartments and townhouses, especially apartments, are going to get a ton more supply this year. For detached and duplex, CREB believes that detached and duplex will be relatively stable this year and the prices should stabilize. I am of the opinion that the prices for detached and duplex will continue to trend downwards slowly, with the potential of stabilizing at some point this year. Now here they're talking about the potential upsides and downsides which could happen this year. When it comes to the upside, they're talking about the shifting stance with the federal government. When it comes to energy, they're pretty much talking about the MOU in regards to the pipeline. That pipeline is due for submission to the Major Projects Office this summer. We have no idea where that's going to go right now. So this is just all potential. When it comes to the downside, obviously, as we all know, US tariffs and the renegotiation of the CUSMA agreement, which is also due at July 1st this year. ATB believes that the Alberta economy will grow at 2.1% this year, which is down from 2.3% last year. They talk about the lower energy price, aka oil price environment that we're currently in and will continue being in 2026. But they also mention some investments from some other sectors that Alberta could get this year, which will be a benefit for Alberta. We're going to talk about employment briefly. This is really important because this also gives an idea of what's going to be happening with the city when it comes to the amount of jobs people have, obviously. There was a 4% increase in employment in 2025, but this year the forecast is there's not going to be much of a shift. And you can see the unemployment rate is going to stay about the same from last year to this year. Population. Now this is a very, very important thing to look at and can tell us a lot about where the market might be heading. But let's look at these numbers. This is how big of a difference it is. In Q1 to Q3 2024, international migration, 107,000. That same time period in 2025, 19,000, an 82% drop. Interprovincial, that time period in 2024, Q1 to Q3, 32,769. Same time period 2025, a year later, 18,532, a 43% drop. So international, 82% drop, interprovincial, 43% drop. We have less people coming to Alberta. That is very clear. Take a look at this chart, 2022, 23, 24, a huge surge in migration. Now, right next to it, 2025, right here, boom, you could just see it collapses, as I showed you in those numbers before. This is a huge deal. Obviously, the more people you have coming into the province, that increases demand for not just rent, but for housing purchases. But now that that's decreased, when we look at where the supply is, as it gets more and more elevated, higher supply, lower demand, typically leads to lower and more stable house prices. New homes under construction, completions, and starts. I want you to look at this very, very carefully. As we know, 2025 was another record year for Alberta home builds. Builders are building a ton. At some point, they are going to adjust because they can see where the market is going. But right now, as of November of last year, there's 26,000 under construction, and for starts, 26,439. Just like I mentioned before that the builders are going to start adjusting to the market, CREB also believes the same thing. They believe that the housing starts are going to decrease 34% to 18,415, down from 27,866. They also believe that builders obviously are going to look at the market and start building less homes. Investors, if you have rental properties, the vacancy rate is obviously much higher than before. Northwest being at 6% vacancy rate. Northeast, 4.5%. The inner city downtown, 5.4%. What's going to be happening with rentals? Rental prices are just going to keep on trending down. Obviously, if you're an investor, you have to be careful and watch out for that. Apartments. Don't buy an apartment right now, period, okay? Unless you have to, I would highly recommend you wait as long as you can before you buy any apartment. Look, CREB's forecast is they believe that apartments overall, okay, this is the overall benchmark price, is going to reduce by 3.5%. Now, this number is misleading. Why? Because this takes into account every single sector of the city. Some areas have higher decrease, some areas have lower, so it kind of messes up with the average in that sense. However, I can tell you, like in the Northeast, the drop in the last 1 or 2 years was much bigger than 3.5%. Some apartment condo complexes, honestly, since 2024 have dropped about 20%. Townhouses. So this is going to be mainly for condo townhouses, okay? CREB is predicting a 1.9% decrease this year. Again, like I mentioned with apartments, this number is misleading a bit. Why? This is talking about when they take every single sector of Calgary and then average out the benchmark price. Certain sectors in the city, such as Northeast and North for townhouses, had a much bigger decrease than anticipated in 2025, and they will have a bigger decrease than 1.9% in 2026, in my opinion. However, I'm very confident in that opinion. Semi-detached, aka duplex. I'm a big believer in duplexes. I'm very bullish on them long term. CREB is actually forecasting that overall across the city, that the benchmark price of duplexes, the average benchmark price, is actually going to go up 0.8%. Now, why are they saying that? This average benchmark price number they use is across all Calgary, and different districts cause the numbers to get skewed. So for example, in the city center and downtown, where duplexes are very expensive and the vast majority of duplexes are in downtown, the city center region, they are very, very expensive. So when they sell, they cause the prices to get a bit skewed when it comes to the average benchmark price. That being said, builders also do not build semi-detached duplexes as often. So they are normally in lower supply compared to other types of properties. Detached homes. So CREB is predicting a 0.1% increase, which means they just believe it'll be flat. Now, as I mentioned before, this number right here, the average benchmark price, this is for all of Calgary, right? This is not for individual sections like Northeast, Northwest, South, City Center, et cetera, et cetera. So each different section does perform differently. Northeast performs differently than Northwest, et cetera, et cetera. So this is just them taking everything. So you can't look at this number and think that your detached property is going to be 0.1% higher or just stay flat by the end of this year. When we look year over year, towards the end of the year, when it comes to sales, they were down about 8%, or sorry, close to 9%. New listings were about 14% higher. The sales to new listings ratio was down about 20%, so 57% sales to new listing. That was towards the end of the year. And the inventory towards the end of the year was 2,500, which is 56% higher. So quite a few more detached homes on the market compared to the end of 2024. Now, if you look over here to the months of supply, you can see it's relatively good for detached. I mean, when you're comparing it to apartments or townhouses, this looks like a beauty. This looks like a dream right here. Northeast is definitely higher. This is getting towards the buyer's market, 4.2. But other parts of the city, not too bad. 2.9, 2.23. That's either still seller's market to getting towards balanced market. So detached as of right now is still okay. Okay, so here at the end, there's a nice little summary with a beautiful image in the back. Now, total residential sales, okay? It's going to give the 2025 numbers and also the 2026 forecast numbers. 2024, there was about 27,000 sales, okay, for 2024. 2025, there's about 23,000. So definitely a noticeable change. Now, they believe that these sales are going to go from, to be exact, 22,752 in 2025 to this year's prediction, 22,200. So they believe that the amount of sales will be about the same as last year. Now, obviously, this is a forecast. This might be totally wrong. Thank you for watching this CREB forecast video. I hope you got some valuable information from it. If you have any other questions to get more into detail, there's a lot in this report I didn't cover. So if you have any questions about it, especially when it relates to your situation, whether you're a buyer, owner, even investor, even a tenant, please reach out to me. We can go over some of this stuff more in detail. I can get you even more information, but I hope there was some valuable information for you regardless of your circumstance and your situation. So until the next video, I will catch you guys later. Take care. Bye.